Hey, I'm Isabel Bercaw, and when I was 12 years old, I founded a multi-million-dollar bath and body products company called the Bomb Bath. After 5 years of building my own brand, I've discovered a passion for helping young and innovative entrepreneurs tell their stories. Hopefully, you'll be inspired by the guests here on Build-A-Biz and maybe even motivated to start a business of your own. Let's get into it.
This is Build-A-Biz with Isabel Bercaw.
Hello, everybody. My name is Isabel Bercaw, and I'm your host here on Build-A-Biz. Thank you for joining me. Today, I am here with the 19-year-old founder and CEO of Disputify. Please welcome Jack Bloomfield.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for being on Build-A-Biz today. I'm so excited to chat with you.
It's all right, me too.
Yeah, so why don't you just start by telling us what is Disputify and why you started it?
Yeah, so we're out to solve the $25 billion a year problem of refund fraud. Now, someone listening might know what refund fraud is and might even have a friend that does it. But essentially, it's when a customer goes to an e-commerce merchant's website, buys a couple of products, but uses their own name and their own information. That merchant, thinking the transaction is completely legitimate, sends the product out and everything's fine. It's only when the customer then receives the product, it's sitting in the living room or in the garage, and they go straight back to the merchant or the bank and they say, hey, it never arrived. Or I ordered 2 pairs of shoes, only one was in the box. Or they'll wardrobe it, or they'll wear it for the weekend, take it out clubbing, go to the races, but they'll keep all the tags on it. And then they'll just return it a couple of days later and just say, oh, the size didn't fit. So essentially, it's like a free version of renting products. You can just wear and buy whatever you like and return it a couple of days later. So I had this problem personally with a lot of the e-commerce businesses that I ran. I was losing a couple $1,000s a month to it. So it was a massive problem. And I did some research into it late 2019 when I was finishing grade 12 and realized that it was a problem on a massive scale. And launched Disputify in 2020 and been out to solve the problem ever since.
No way. So do you still run your company that you were just referring to, your e-commerce company?
No. So it was one of the things that I sold when I started Disputify. A couple of reasons. Primarily was because I raised quite a bit of money for Disputify early on. And one of the things I thought that I needed to do is no one ever told me, but it was one of those commitment things where I know that if I try and do 2 things at once, it's never going to go well. And also too, I was looking for a change. I'd done the e-commerce websites for 3-4 years beforehand. And this was something that I was incredibly passionate about, Disputify, and thought, well, all right, give it a chance and make sure it works.
Nice. Can you tell us a little bit more about that e-commerce business, just out of pure curiosity?
Yeah. So I started that at 15. $500 to my name. I was still obviously in high school. Had no idea what I was doing. I came across it because I saw this guy who was 22. He was on YouTube. He was talking about how he'd made all this money selling stuff online. And I was like, well, that's really cool. Maybe I could try to do something like that as well. So then I did a bit of research into it. It was just watching, doing everything I could after school on the weekends, watching YouTube videos. First product I ever sold was a carbon fiber money clip. I'd found the product over in China. I'd found a way that I could get the supplier to send it directly to the guy who bought it from me, whoever overseas, and thought, well, this is a great little business. Anyway, realized that no one actually wanted carbon fiber money clips. That was one of my first problems. So it took 6 months to make a sale. I had no idea what I was doing. But as soon as I kind of cracked on to find proper products and build a proper website and all of that, it started to scale really quickly and did really well off the back of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Something I can kind of, observe from that story is I personally feel like with my business, business is ever evolving. And a theme that always comes up on this show is you can read as much as you want about business and it will help you. But the best way to learn about business is to just be in business. So in a way, you did exactly that with your carbon money clips, but also, you were almost in a way preparing yourself to then start what is Disputify today. So you saw this problem and you were looking for a solution. That's another point I kind of want to talk about. I always find that when an entrepreneur is experiencing a problem themselves, it always leads to a great solution that people that us as entrepreneurs didn't even know that other people had. So for example, just with my bath bomb business, I was like, wow, I'd really love a surprise inside of this bath bomb. Mm-hmm. And then one day I decided to put my brother's toys inside of a bath bomb to get him in the bath. And turns out all my friends and their siblings wanted something like that too. So it was kind of a thing where I had a problem. I'm doing air quotes to the listeners listening to the show. It wasn't really as serious as a problem as people having some fraudulent claims.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you can relate to that a little bit.
No, 100%. You're spot on, because like and in my experience, yeah, Disputify is one of them, but I think there are massive businesses that have been built just out of a simple problem. Refund fraud, which is what we go after, yes, is a problem, but also too, there have been many other businesses that have just been started on really, really, really small problems. And one of the things that I've really believed in ever since I learned it a couple of years ago is the amount of money you're going to make, or how successful you're going to be, is directly proportionate to the problem you solve and how many people you can solve it for. And if both those are large enough, you'll do well no matter what you end up doing.
That is really great advice. It sounds like you're sort of a self-taught learner in a way. Would you agree?
Look, yeah, to an extent. I think that the best way I find learning is just talking to people, getting myself out there, talking to people, figuring out who is the person who has done what I want to do, seeking them out and having a chat. I find that by doing that, as opposed to reading books or taking any sort of proper education courses, uni, or however extreme you want to go, I find that all that's great. But as you rightly touched on before, the best way to go and do something is to just go and do it. And by talking to people who have actually had experience doing the thing you want to do, you're putting yourself 10 steps ahead.
That's so true. And something kind of funny, I'm just kind of going off of what you're saying. Something kind of funny I'm thinking about is how once you do talk to the like super successful entrepreneurs, I'm sure you'll agree with this. At first, no one has any idea what they're doing. And even further down the road, people have no idea what they're doing. It's almost like a way of learning how to think, not a way of learning how to like actually do the thing. But I guess it's like a way of problem solving is probably the best way I can describe it as.
Yeah, it is. But also too, it's like I'm trying to. It's no one ever understands a problem as well as someone who's actually experienced it. And I think that you can try and ram home an issue to someone or try and get them to see inside the mind and like, well, this is why I'm doing it. This is why it's so important. But if someone hasn't lived through what you've been through and doesn't understand exactly where you're going and doesn't have all the same context that you have, you really can't expect them to understand it, just actually get on board and be as convicted and motivated as you are to make it happen. So I think it's like with everything. But also too, I think that there are also people who start businesses that the problem they're out to solve isn't exactly that simple, and the solution they've got, they don't really know, and that's okay. But it's one of those things that time will tell. If you could stick with it long enough, you refine what you're doing well enough and get to a point, then people will start to understand.
Totally. That's kind of sticking with the theme of like how business is ever evolving. And you started a completely different business and that led you to where you are today, which is super cool. A little like story I'm thinking of when you said that is, once we had somebody come to us early on in our business and they suggested, our bath bombs, they're not in Australia, sadly, but our bath bombs are known in the US for having bright colors on a black package or like a printed package. It's really beautiful in my opinion. And it wasn't done before. It was a lot of like white packaging or maybe brown paper bag packaging. And someone suggested that we don't do the black packaging with the vibrant colors early on, but it was a dude who had never been in the bath and body industry before. He was not the target market. And I don't think he'd started a business, but I think that he was a consultant. So I'm sure he has a lot of great logistical advice for people, but for us personally, that creative decision was internal because we understood our business better than anybody else did.
Yeah, and also too, you'll find that everyone's got an opinion about everything. So you need to have and obviously I can't use the word I want to use, but you've got to have a really good detector on what people are actually saying. And you could take advice from everyone, and I think it's important. You don't not talk to someone because they don't understand, and you didn't. You listened to the guy, you took his feedback on board, and then you went away and you made a decision internally, and you said, well, we don't really think this is the right way to go for reason X, Y, and Z. So you detected what he was saying, and you made a path of that. So I think as long as you can do that, no matter what you're doing, and you rightly did, then you'll always be spot on.
Yeah, and totally. And sometimes people, like to your point, can also give you great advice. It totally just depends on the person that you're talking to, what their experience is in business. I'm sure we had some other great takeaways from that meeting, but that specific piece of advice was something we chose to just to take that decision, like you said, internally onto our board. So that's super cool that you find that to be true.
But to say, I'd love to also compliment the fact that I'm an expert in beauty products, and that black is, yes, 100% the perfect way to go for packaging. But I'll take your word on it, and it clearly has, because you guys have done so well. So there you go.
Well, I wish I could send you some bath bombs. Actually, one of my goals for this year is to figure out how to get my products a little more international.
Is it quite difficult to just try and, like, you can't just open an e-commerce store, sell, like, if someone's happy to wait a week and a half for the products, or are you just moving away from that?
Mm-hmm. This is an interesting question that you're asking me. I'm like, oh, I get to answer a question. But what our problem is right now is our demand is actually too high in the US to be able to deal with
great problem.
So that's a great thing for us, but also we wish we could get bath bombs to more people. But yeah, it's definitely, you always have to have goals in your business. I know that you're actually big on goal setting. I'd love to ask you about what goes into setting a goal for you. Do you have certain values that you stay true to, or is there like a process that you go through to set a goal, or tell me about what goes on in your head when you're doing that.
Yeah. Look, it's probably not too sophisticated, so I probably can't give the answer that everyone wants. But the way that I kind of think about things is you got to figure out what you want first, and then you track back from that. So if you can figure out what your North Star is, and if your values are right, and you're thinking about problems and the way that you should go about them the right way, most often than not, you're going to have a pretty good idea of where you want to end up and where you want things to go. So as soon as you know what that is, and you know where kind of X marks the spot, you can then kind of plot the track back from there. So I think if you can do that, that's, for me, always worked out really well. I think that it's pretty pointless just to kind of set a goal which is a week long, but you don't really know where you need to be in the next month, because week goals are great, but where do you go after that? So I think incremental improvement is pretty important, but without having that long-term vision and figuring out, well, how am I going to get to where I need to be, then yeah, it's pretty well useless.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting that you say that, because my sister and I, we work really well together. And one of the main reasons is because I'm more of the personality type that has really big aspirations. I get a little bit ambitious sometimes. I want to go in really fast at certain projects, or in fast to certain projects. And then Caroline, my sister, who is also my business partner, she's a little more methodical, and she likes to look into the process. And I've totally found that to be true, what you're saying right now, that you kind of need a little bit of both. You need to have your North Star, like you referred to it as. And then you also need to look, take it one day at a time is what I kind of try to tell myself. That's really awesome.
You're spot on.
Okay, so Jack, we're actually going to take a really quick music break, but when we return, we can continue to talk about maybe some goals that you have for the future, because I'm super curious. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Build-A-Biz. I'm Isabel Bercaw, your host, and today I'm interviewing Mr. Jack Bloomfield. He is the CEO and founder of a tech safety company called Disputify, and he was just going to tell us about, hopefully, some goals that he has in the future. Jack, what goals do you have?
Look, probably for us, in terms of Disputify specifically, we're about to raise another round of funding at the moment, so we're kicking that off over the next week, which is exciting, but stressful, as it always is. So that's been my last month of my life, so getting that already, and we'll kind of hit the road over the next week, which will be cool. As soon as we tick that box, we're growing the team. So we're a team of 5 here, based out of Australia. So Brisbane, for anyone who knows where that is, hour flight north of Sydney. We're probably going to spend, for us, a lot of the focus is on the US market. A lot of the organic traction we've seen. Refund fraud in the US is just such a bigger problem than it is here in Australia. You just look at the numbers, size of e-commerce, size of fraud, and a bunch of other things as well. So for us, that's the next market to kind of try and hit and do a good job of. So potentially me spending more time there, trying to figure out what the best way for it is to go. Once again, it's like I don't have all the answers. And for me, it's just trying to find people who I can also speak to and learn from to figure out, well, US market's great, but it's not one that I've spent a lot of time in. I'm only 19, so can't spend time everywhere. So trying to figure out what the best way to do about that is. But yeah, look, growing the team more, bringing more customers on, transaction numbers for us is super important because that's how we charge by. So getting that up, we've scanned about $130 million worth of transactions to date. So if we can get that up to a couple billion over the next couple of years, that'd be super super happy. And yeah, just kind of tracking that forward. For me personally, I'd like to stay in Brisbane for as long as I possibly can. If I can do some commuting between Australia and the US, I think that'll be pretty cool. But yeah, I think just getting out of my comfort zone, doing as much as I possibly can to just kind of spread my wings, if I can use that cliche term, and get out there. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, well, if you're ever in New York, come say hi.
There we go. I sure will. And I'd love some free accommodation as well. So I'll definitely.
I'm going to have a couch. It'll be perfect.
Yeah, I'll definitely shamelessly ask for as much as I can.
No problem there. A concept I've noticed, or I guess it's just sort of an idea that I've noticed that you've brought up a couple of different times throughout the interview, is that you keep repeating that you don't have all the answers. And honestly, coming from somebody like you, that's actually super refreshing to hear. I think especially from people like looking in on the outside, seeing the headlines that you're a super successful entrepreneur, because obviously you are, but it's also just refreshing to hear that you also don't have all the answers, and that you don't necessarily have to be like a clairvoyant to be able to be an entrepreneur. It's more of a take it day by day kind of thing. And I don't know, I think that's super awesome that you're just totally honest about that. Can I ask you how you deal with some problems? I know earlier in the interview we were talking about problems that we face every day. Can you give me like an example of what a problem in the day in the life of Jack Bloomfield looks like, and how you go about solving those problems?
God, I don't think anyone wants to hear that because it's not that interesting. But look, it's it's almost rock up at the office, 7, 8 o'clock. There's always problems to solve. I mean, whether it's a sales problem, whether it's a product problem, whether it's a process problem, whether it's all the other ones I don't want to think about. So there's all that to solve. Look, for us, in terms of, I guess, how I like to think about problems, I don't know if it was Elon Musk who said it, and I've still got to figure it out, but it's kind of in my head for the last year and a half. Like Elon, for example, is a guy that looks at conquering Mars. He looks at, well, how can we put an electric vehicle in everyone's garage? Like, the guy's got some really, really, really ambitious goals. And one of the things that he or someone similar to him, don't know exactly who it was, said, pretty sure it was Elon though, said that the way that he looks at issues is when he's got these things that he is wanting to achieve that are so big, everything else just doesn't matter. And there are always going to be issues. There are always going to be problems. And there are always going to be things that everyone comes up against. But realistically, for me, I think it's just how you tackle them, how you view them. And if you view them as just a bump in the road, but the road itself is a journey. So like, there's always going to be potholes. There's always going to be bumps in the road. Things aren't always going to be straight. I think that if you look at it that way, and that's how I like to view it, just kind of say cool, calm, collected, know that I kind of look at it every single day that is a good day. I kind of expect the next day not to be so great. And if it is great, happy days, fantastic, thumbs up. But if it's not, then that's okay. I expected it. So not being a Debbie Downer, but I just think having a realistic expectation of the fact that things aren't always going to go great, but realistically you're building for something big. So just kind of expect that that's not going to be easy.
Totally. And I actually, I have a little sentence that I like to tell myself in the workplace. Often it's just the sentence, expect the unexpected. And I literally think you described that. So that's cool. I also kind of noticed that what you were describing was something that I like to also remind myself of, which is you're going to have really high points in business. You're also going to have really low points, and you need to stay humble during the high points and hopeful during the low points is what I try and tell myself. And then at the end of the day, if your high points are outweighing the stress, I guess, that the low points give you, and this could be for anybody in any aspect of life, not even an entrepreneur. But if those high points are outweighing the low points, then you know that you're doing something that's worth it. So I find that to be kind of similar to what you were talking about. So that's cool.
No, it very, 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 very much is. And I think that's a great thing. And there are plenty of ways that people can think about problems, but like for everyone, it's always going to be different. And I think that just not like to what we both said, it's just like, don't get wrapped up in the small stuff. Just kind of look at the bigger vision and know that not every day is going to be good. And if you can go in with that attitude and expect the unexpected, as you perfectly said, then things will turn out pretty well.
Yes, maybe I'll just need to text Elon Musk because I totally have his number and be like, Elon, I have a new catchphrase for you. No.
Yeah, I have a catchphrase. But Jack, one of my podcast guests, doesn't actually know if you said, but you should say it because it sounds pretty good.
Yes, totally, totally. How the heck do you manage your busy schedule?
I cheat because I used to have an assistant that used to help me with it all. So that was kind of like the cheater's hack. But now I've relied on Calendly. So the board got rid of my assistant, so now I don't have that anymore. But now I've got Calendly, so I rely on that. It's free. Like if anyone wants to schedule meetings, you just kind of shoot them a Calendly link. You have different ones set up for different time zones. That for me has always worked out pretty well over the last month or two. But yeah, also too, I think being confident enough in yourself to say no to people. I think that there are, and the better you do at anything, there are going to be more people who want those coffee catch-ups, and the people who, my least favorite sentence is pick your brains. Can I take you out to a coffee to pick your brains? I just don't like it because it just seems like a one-sided exchange where you just get to sit there, you get paid $4 for half an hour of your time for someone to just sit there and ask you 50 million questions that doesn't benefit you at all. And there are situations where you should just go out and help people because it's the right thing to do, but there are other people who are just literally doing it to literally just get some free advice off you. So I think being able to stand your ground and say no, and prioritize and figure out what's most important. If you've got some time for those, pick your brain sessions with someone, great, take them. But at the same time too, no one to put your foot in the ground and say no and keep everything organized.
Yeah, totally. Because I totally know some people who gave me some of their time when starting out. So then whenever someone asks me, I really love to pay it forward. But I also understand where you're coming from when it comes to setting boundaries for yourself because, you have to, or I guess this for me kind of runs true, not necessarily for speaking with people, but it runs true when it comes to doing certain activities. So if I'm about to hire someone for a position, let's say an assistant, I'll hire your assistant. She's coming to my place. No, just kidding.
Yeah, you can have her now though. Yeah, she's free now.
Basically, I try and ask myself, would you be able to benefit your company better doing a $15 an hour job right now or a $150 an hour job? And if an activity that I could be doing is worth $150 per hour, and that is going to take up time that I could be doing my $15 per hour job, I'm going to pick the $150 per hour job that I need to be doing. And I'm going to hire out the other position because I feel like that you could probably trust somebody with a position more that hasn't really gotten to know your business before. And that's just kind of like a parallel that I drew to what you're talking about a little bit.
Excellent.
So yeah, Jack, you have given us so much great advice today, and I loved speaking with you, and honestly, I got a good laugh out of it too. So thank you so much for coming on Build-A-Biz, and if anybody wants to follow you on Instagram, everyone should go to @Disputify on Instagram, and then also at Jack Bloomfield, where he gives lots of great advice every single day.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, Isabel. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, or as the Australians say it, cheers. If you missed the beginning of this episode, you can definitely go to the Build-A-Bear YouTube channel where there is a Build-A-Bear radio playlist, and Build-A-Biz episodes are always put up there after they air, so you can definitely go there and check that out and look at other episodes as well. And I'd love it if you could follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is Isabel.Bercaw, and I will also be posting weekly updates on who I'm going to be interviewing next. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye.